My wife plants trees all over our yard, okay? So I'm for planting a tree. And having said all that, my primary purpose in life is not to protect our environment as much as it is to present the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not trying to make this a Sunday school lesson, but here's why I'm thinking this. Why do I believe I'm to present the gospel? Because Jesus said, heaven and earth is going to pass away. No matter how much reform we bring to this earth, he said, heaven and earth is going to pass away. Hey friend, the Bible teaches climate change is coming. Yes, I believe that. The storyline, however, is it will not be man orchestrated, but God initiated. He will initiate the climate change. Jesus taught that this planet is an object of God's wrath because of its violence, its man-induced poverty, and it's subject to worshiping creation more than the creator. So, hey, soda cans can be recycled, people cannot. So I want to go after people, all right? I don't care what your gender, your race, your sex, religion is. I want to go after people with the gospel.
Well, I have to say, and then the first part of this talk, God's charged us with the responsibility of taking care of this planet as the highest, most intelligent creatures on this planet. We have total responsibility for the rest of its inhabitants and everything on it. Now, I don't subscribe to the idea that.
But I still love her.
I love you too. Subscribe to the idea that climate change is God-induced. I believe that it is man-made. And in the Quran, in the Surah, the Romans, God said that chaos and corruption has become apparent in the land and the sea because of what human hands have earned. So if we did not pollute the air, the water, and the oceans, this planet would be more pristine and would be much more teeming with life. But we've done, our corporations in the industrialized world done so much stuff that is destroying coral reefs, destroying rivers, destroying, everything. And these corporations that put nice ads on our TVs, but at the same time they go to Africa and like Nigeria and its surrounding countries, extract oil in the most crude ways and pollute one of the biggest rivers in the world, the Niger River, which over 100 million people drink from, and it's polluted because of oil companies, American oil companies, and European oil companies, because there are no rules over there. They go and bribe the politicians, and they do things without following the rules they would follow here. Same thing in Central and South America, in the Amazons, they run amok because they're backed by the U.S. military that goes and punishes anyone who is not going to do what we want them to do. We have to be truthful. We went into Afghanistan not because we want freedom for those people. We went there because they had lithium and they had rare earth materials that we needed it, and it's only there. As Dick Cheney said at the time, when he was vice president, I don't know why God put all these good stuff over there, and we have to go get them. And so we were talking about poverty. Afghanistan, over 40 million people, are one of the most poor countries in the world because of 20 years of US occupation there. And because we are putting sanctions on them. And right now, we put sanctions on them that we don't let people give them food or help or medicine or anything. And then we say, it's their fault. It's not fair to talk about the environment when we are one of the top 5 emitters. China is probably #1 now, India too. But we have been doing this since the industrial age for the last couple hundred years. And just because we stopped doing it, or we are not #1 anymore in that arena, that doesn't absolve us from the responsibility for destroying the environment for the rest of the planet and warming up the planet. And many nations that are suffering right now, they're going underwater, is because of actions we took decades ago to build our industries and to build our nation. So we need to step up. We live on the same spaceship Earth, and we need to take care of many of these poor nations who will not be able to survive these climate change issues. And the very corporations that have made tens of billions of dollars in profit, they need to go and clean up their act and clean up the mess they created in this world. So we can talk about the environment, but we have to take actions. We have to hold those who created the mess responsible. And we all can do something about it. The Prophet Muhammad said, if you think the world is ending and you have a small tree in your hand, go ahead and plant it. Okay? You do your part. I do my part. I plant that tree. And if each one of us does that, we can perhaps have a better future for our children.
All right, thank you. Any quick questions from the audience? Yes, go ahead, Josh.
So, coming from somebody who is fortunate enough to be born into a family that can afford a house in Windermere, and I've lived there for quite a bit of time, the people that live in Windermere disgust me. I hate every single person that walks in the middle of the street, has to walk their dog, can't drive around them. If you're on a bike, they also drive in the middle of the street. They have opinions, they never say hi, and they never do this. Just giving you an example. I live around people that are what the word snob means. Just because I live in this area, and we've lived there forever, does this mean that I'm supposed to be the next Elon Musk? Am I supposed to be the next big superstar? I mean, my parents didn't have any intention of, being in this area because, oh, here's all the money and stuff like that. They bought a lot, and it was just there. So just because the surrounding or the environment that I was born and raised in ended up becoming what is now a premier place in Florida, does that, define me? That's just what I want your opinions on.
No, it gives you opportunity though, that you can take advantage of and leverage on behalf of others. So that's been one of our approaches actually in the work that we're doing at Bithlo. Avalon Park is one of the most successful communities in East Orange County. And literally the back wall of Avalon Park is the back wall of Bithlo. Avalon Park residents don't think about it because the front entrance are many miles separated. But when I first started talking in Avalon Park to groups about what was happening in Bithlo, I would say, is groundwater okay coming from your sink? And of course, everyone would say, absolutely not. Then is it okay for groundwater to come from a Bithlo resident sink? Absolutely not. And so then they were able to leverage their collective influence to care about a community that no one else cared about. And suddenly a dynamic shifted where there were no votes and no money, which is what attracts politicians typically. And Bithlo, suddenly when Avalon Park started caring about Bithlo, elected officials started caring about Bithlo. So I think you have a great opportunity to leverage the fortune that you have to be born in Windermere on behalf of others that didn't have that great opportunity and ended up being born in a different community. And I just wanted to go back a little bit to say also, the way governments have historically handled poverty and poor people is, in Kenya, they make you live in a certain area out of the way. Or when they want that area, they just push you somewhere else. We did that here with Paramore. We didn't transform Paramore, although if you've been to Paramore lately, it's looking pretty darn good in most places. Because we just developed over Paramore, but the people got pushed somewhere else. In our approach, we want to keep the same people in the neighborhood while fixing the underlying infrastructure and systems that aren't working right. How do we do that? We gotta change government's approach to the way they deal with communities like Bithlo. And so people of influence like you, elected officials care about. So when you say fix these underlying structural problems, they're more likely to listen because you care.
Yeah, so we won't hold it against you that you. It is really an opportunity for you to, as you said, to motivate your neighbors to care about another community that needs your help, need your vote, need your the politicians that come to listen to you, because they want your money. To say, if you care about me, I want you to care about Paramore. You know, as he said, Paramore, when they put I-4, they flew over Paramore. No exit, just they're down there. No stores, no gas stations, nothing. Okay? Now, because they want that real estate, prime real estate, they pushed them out and took it over and started developing it. I remember when it was like, you know, a few dollars for a square foot. Now it is $few thousand for a square foot. So you can take your influence and where you are positioned to help other people who are less fortunate. They didn't choose to be born in Paramore or live in Paramore, but they can't do it without you. So God divides this responsibility and gives you this role to help them. And if you do that, then if the roles were switched for some reason, you expect them to come and help you when things go the other way.
Can I come live with you?
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, everything I've learned, a landscape home, perfect landscape home on the outside, doesn't mean everything's hunky-dory on the inside.
Yep.
Okay, just let you know, 30 years of law enforcement have proven that. Number two, no, I don't think you're, God expects you to be an Elon Musk, but I do know the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. So I want to help my neighbor.
And the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required. So you have an extra responsibility.
Okay, one last question. We'll go to our.
So the opposite of that question. I've heard two people, one earlier said that your environment kind of dictates who you are. And use your influence because you were born in a good place to help people that are in a worse place, which I definitely, as a Christian, do not disagree with. The first gentleman that said your environment kind of dictates who you are. I grew up poor because we couldn't afford the last O and the last R. My dad put me with my grandfather because he was active duty, and I grew up, my grandfather was a sharecropper. For 2 years, we didn't have running water. I took a bath outside. We heated the water on open flame. Then he would put it on the porch until it was cool enough for me to bathe. So I know what poverty is. When I was small, I asked my granddad, I think I was probably 10. And I said, what can I do when I grow up? And the biggest takeaway from him my whole life is one time he told me, you can get yourself out of here, just work and work hard and don't quit, right? So I think I joined the Army. I've been all the way around the world, and I was a law enforcement officer for almost 30 years and have an associate's degree. All that was drive. That was God put in me, right? Through my grandfather's advice. So I grew up in that environment, but that environment didn't dictate who I was. And the reason I think it didn't is nobody ever showed up on my grandfather's farm and told me that I was a victim. So I think that while the intentions are good, sometimes you can hurt people by driving it into their head. You are not able to overcome this without help, because you are a victim. How would you respond to something?
So please don't misunderstand anything I said. At our school, for example, we don't talk about what you can't do. One of the problems with public school is you get a diagnosis when you're 4 years old, autism. Then the next teacher, the next year gets the file, autism. So what does that teacher do? Even if it's not overtly, she or he limits the potential of that student because of that diagnosis. So I say within the community, not just in our school, but if all that works is your tongue, lick stamps. May not be a relevant illustration right now, we're not using stamps too often anymore, but the point is, let's not focus on what you can't do, let's focus on what you can do. And so I'll say, I believe in you, you can be or do anything, and I don't know the town that you grew up in, but unless you got a set of false teeth, I can't tell from a distance.
No, I'm missing something, but they're all.
But again, there are some things that literally do set the way people feel about you. You know, I see in Bithlo so often a different kind of discrimination, not based on race, but based on where you come from. Like literally, there's middle-class suburbia right on the edge, Corner Lakes Estates, Wedgefield, Christmas. And I see in the school office, the Bithlo parent, sit over there and we'll tell you what should be done with your kid. And then the mom from the middle-class community, because everything looks great, being treated so much differently. So again, we're not about entitlements. I'm about getting people off the dole. We're about putting things in place so that people can succeed on their own. And then if you never had the benefit of a grandpa or a dad that told you you could be or do anything, which too many people have not had that benefit, then maybe you don't think you can be or do anything. And you don't have that drive because if everybody around you is not driving anywhere, then you think that's normal. You know, if you've only had brown water, in fact, people in the academic world and the healthcare world are always like, well, didn't you survey and find out what the people wanted? And number one, poor people are surveyed too much. It's almost like they're experiments. But number two, we've just been operating from the golden rule in everything that we do. If I'm not okay with brown water, I'm just gonna assume you're not okay with brown water. But you may not tell me brown water is your number one problem, because you've always had brown water. You know what I'm saying? So it's just shifting that dynamic so that people can be exposed to things they otherwise weren't exposed to. So that if they didn't have that grandpa, maybe we can bring in that grandpa to be that inspiration to them as a mentor or something else. So we're not about, in fact, we have a kid that came to our school, most of our teachers are trained in special education. He came at 4 years old, he kicked, he bit, he terrorized the class and his teachers because he was autistic, mom said. Now we're getting into, 5 or 6 weeks before school and I was talking to the teacher, the kid's like, I had to hire a full-time teacher's assistant just for that one kid because of the maintenance that he needed in his behavior. And now, literally, that kid can be and do anything. In fact, she's wondering, was that diagnosis even true? And I'm wondering the same thing. We had a kid that just flailed on the ground when he first came to school because his older sister was autistic. So he was mimicking her behavior. So when the parent brought them into the school, mom said, he's autistic. But when he crossed around in the corner, we made eye contact for a second. And I knew that kid wasn't autistic. And so I said, just leave him on the ground and go about your business. And about 2 hours later, guess what? He got up, joined the line because he didn't want to be ignored. Okay, so it's really about what you can do, not what you can't do from our part.
What is AIDS? AIDS is many things, just don't figure
It can hurt, but not always in a physical way, and you just feel afraid to tell. It can make you feel sad,
out. Angry,
confused,
frightened,
or anxious.
feel like you're trapped. Like you can't get out.
And you can't do the things you want to do. And then your confidence starts to slip away.
Most people don't know what's going on, but some people do know and may not know what to do about it.
Try to block through it, or even just accept it.
Hard things that come to north. But harm of AIDS, physical or mental as well.
It's about power and control, and it doesn't always happen because of drugs.
Some people can just be cruel, or some can have a mental health problem. But there are laws that protect you, and you need to know that it's okay to ask for help.
Sometimes it's hard to know who to trust.
You can be let down, ignored, or not taken seriously. Trust gets chipped away, but you need to try again.
It's important not to give up asking for help. You have to be brave. You may have to knock on 3 doors before you find the right one.
You need to look after yourself, stay safe, and make decisions for yourself.
There are people who can help you. Find someone you trust, like a family member, a teacher, a neighbor, or a tutor.
Someone you feel you can share your story with,
They'll tell you it's not your fault.
they'll help you feel safe,
The right person can help you get support.
they'll take action and help you to look ahead and get hopeful about tomorrow.
You are not alone. Together you can do something about it, or good stuff.
Stop saying what if.
Today can be better than yesterday.
What's up, y'all? I'm back. Let's talk about violence. Violence encompasses the exertion of physical force with the intent of causing harm. It could be physical, psychological, or both. Violence don't know border, affecting individuals of all age across the world. Like kids can be violent. Some causes of violence include social, economic inequality, mental health issues, childhood trauma, peer influence, political factors, and just stress and frustration. Some solutions to violence would be education and awareness, promoting mental health, support for victims, law enforcement, better laws, and just conflict resolution. Really important to remember, everybody has their own problems. Just keep in mind to be nice to everybody. Always be kind. And violence is also never the answer. You should probably talk it out. That's our answer.
Thank you. For our speakers, what is your view from a social justice perspective related to violence in our society and around the world?
Thanks. I appreciate it so much. So real quick, I see violence from the following root causes. Substance abuse is a cause of violence. Illicit drugs or alcohol. Domestic violence. That will result in domestic violence. Illicit drugs, I'm not saying the only two things. Illicit drugs and alcohol will result in domestic violence. Peer pressure, to include wanting to be a gangbanger. Enjoy the game, they will force you to do a certain act of violence. Stress, hey, can I ask you right now? Can we not say stress causes road rage? Hello, please. Becoming addicted to media violence. Kids are watching things that, good night of living, songs, rap songs, country songs, I don't care. Boy, they really promote violence. That's the side. Being a victim of violence can cause you to become a violent person. I was arrested as a 3rd grader. His father raised him on S&M. In 3rd grade, he took a girl in class, followed her home on a bus. It wasn't his bus, just a 3rd grader out east. And I'm not saying that's true of everyone out east, okay? I'm just saying, how do you raise your kid? Followed the girl home on the bus, got off the bus with her. This is a 3rd grader. Grabbed her by the hair, drug her into the woods. A 3rd grader. Media can influence you to be violent. It can. Hey, I'd be a fool if I didn't say religion can make you violent. Crusades, jihads, yeah, they can be a cause for violence. And can we not say politics can cause violence? Oh, goodness, that's why America is so polarized. We're so violent towards one another, angry towards one another. Because of politics, all these are, in my humble opinion, cause and effect of violence, not only in America, but in the world we live in. As a follower of Jesus Christ, I'm just going to be brief. Hey, for me, the answer is Jesus. Whatever oppresses you, whatever is bothering you, whatever is afflicting you, boy, he can take and make the flawless clay. Jesus for me is the answer to deliver us from violence in America. Leave it at that.
You know, in the work that we do, I often talk about the south side of Chicago is a good example. Not everybody's shooting up the neighborhood, but the violence in the neighborhood is setting the tone for the whole neighborhood. So while we're working to put these underlying systems and infrastructure in place, we're also intentionally reaching out to the toughest 10 or 15% of the community. So that's why the school has the toughest kids in the neighborhood in school, not because they're not smart, but because of everything going on. That's why I'm out there in the streets, literally trying to work with the drug dealers and the prostitutes and the criminals to change the tone of the community so everybody can act. I think my resume is so unique and going back to being in law enforcement for a period of time to be able to do this work because it's a very physical community. I mean, the way that everybody responds to things is with violence. It's, you know, I'm gonna punch you, I'm gonna hit you. I mean, two of our students, the second week of school, their dad shot and killed their sister's fiance 2 blocks from Transformation Village, our downtown that we're creating. And they still gotta try to succeed in life in spite of that happening right in front of one of our students in the front yard, 2 blocks away. It's a very violent community. Lewis, that went to our school from 7 to 17, lived without power or water, because if you can't pay your electric bill in Bithlo, you also don't have water. For 2 years, back of the trailer collapsed, mom a drug addict, you know, living with all of that chaos, decides to move to Titusville to live with his dad he met once and his grandma he never met. Comes back to us a few months later with a big black eye because his dad beat him up and trying to figure out how to plug him back in. And in the meantime, he goes out one night because his aunt felt bad on having him on lockdown and some rivalry that he had from the past ran into him. Word on the street is beat him with a baseball bat dozens of times in the head, put him in the trash bag, put him in the middle of the road to be run over because there's no street lights out there on most streets. And the irony of Lewis's life is that his mom delivered him at the fire station in Bithlo, and he was run over in front of the fire station in Bithlo.
Jesus.
I mean, I could go on and on, but just the 15 years I've been there, the dozens and dozens of people that have been taken as a result of violence. If you came and took a tour of Transformation Village in the school, I would show you Lewis's self-portrait that he painted when he was 12 years old with a little cloud and Gatorade and a football. And he wrote on the back of it about himself, and he said, you know, my name's Lewis, I love Gatorade and football. Please stop child abuse because I've been abused. And he had just revealed that when he was 4 or 5 years old, he was first molested. So it's, again, all of these things that are happening. So when we opened our medically assisted treatment center a few months ago, and we now can address substance use disorder or behavioral health in the neighborhood, I put a post on Facebook on every Bithlo page and surrounding areas in East Orange County, and I said, I'm offering career changes to all the drug dealers because they're about to cut off the clientele. And guess what a lot of drug users said to me? Tim, you like pissed off a lot of people. Like, these guys are not happy with you. I go, good, because I'm in a different role than I used to be. I'm not trying to send them to prison or jail. I'm trying to get them to change their ways. Because they themselves, I'm not talking about the guys that live in Windermere, by the way, that come into Bithlo and bring the drugs, that don't use them. I'm talking about the dealers and users that are just trying to survive in the neighborhood. They themselves grew up with the only people that had a bag, had cash, were the 12-year-olds that were running stuff around between houses. So therefore that became their thing. You know, we have very little theft from Transformation Village, our organization, but a few weeks ago, somebody decided it was a good idea to cut the chains on a couple of pumps we had that pumped water from the ditch to the street. And I was pissed because that's disrespectful. And so within about a week of putting the word out, somebody called and said, here's where the 2 pumps are. It gave me the address. So I backed my pickup truck up to the gate of the house, went to the neighbor's house, got the phone number, called John or whatever his name was, and said, hey, I got my truck parked. I need you to help load my our pumps up because I'm about to come in your gate and get them back. And then when I talked to this guy, and he told me he's so disabled that criminals have taken over his yard, really, and both of his kids have overdosed and died. And it's just a cycle of things that are just going wrong that are not okay. But I wasn't trying to prosecute this guy for having our well pumps, or pumps rather. I was trying to figure out why does he think it's okay to participate in this activity? And so, violence is a very real thing. I probably get my life threatened about once a week. But, you know, the Bible also says if you love your life, you lose it. And there's no greater love that a person has if they're willing to give up their life for a friend. And so this is the kind of commitment and dedication that's needed in communities like Bithlo, in communities like Haiti where we work, which is real tough, and even in communities in Kenya and Roma villages where thugs and gangsters set the climate for the whole community. And therefore that kind of dictates what happens in that neighborhood. And so while we're working on underlying infrastructure and systems, we have to reach out to those folks and cut off that career and offer them the opportunity for another one. And then just the last point, we have a real problem in our country with helping people re-enter. When they pay their debt to society, there's a real problem with, you can't get a job, you can't go to school, you can't live here, you can't do all these other things. And without redemption, we can never have transformed communities. And so we have to work on that and rethink the way that we address violence and crimes.
Well, listening to them, I feel that violence comes from unsettled heart, where the person is in themselves, they are unhinged, they're unhappy, they're afraid, it's like a volcano inside that's spilling out all this lava and this, hot rock on whoever's around them. And the solution comes from, the golden rule, love for your brother what you love for yourself. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught us that you're not a believer until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. If you want happiness, you want peace, you want safety, you want money, you want whatever, you have to love that for your brother. And your brother is not your blood brother, it is whoever is a human that you come in contact with. You have to always love for others what you love for yourself. In this nation, we don't promote this concept. We promote individualism, me. We have the NRA going around and saying, oh, everybody should have a gun. Everybody should, I can accept law enforcement, like my friend Pastor Bill, to have a gun because he's a God-fearing individual, he's responsible, he's trained. But all those who are running around with guns, they're neither trained nor God-fearing. They're trigger happy, and we get all this violence that begets violence. As he said earlier, it is in the games that the children play. It promotes and glorifies violence. It's in the movies. It is in the social media. It is in the songs. It's everywhere. And, I'm shocked that our Supreme Court considers that as a form of entertainment, that as a basic right, that they don't see a problem in it. When we see the results on the streets, when we see over 130,000 people dying in this country, with guns. I mean, for God's sake, how many people did we lose in Vietnam in 10 years? 60,000? We're losing every year, double that with gun violence. So we have war going on in our nation, and we can't fix that by saying, some meaningful rules to curb the prevalence of, guns on the streets, guns in their own hands. And I'm not against, you own a gun, But you have to be very responsible because unlike, I mean, we take, for example, Tylenol. I cannot sell you Tylenol. I'll go to jail, right? But I can sell you a gun. You can take a Tylenol, it will help you, but a gun, it will use it once and you're gone. So, and I have to say, you know, I'm surprised with our, my Christian friends. With love. Okay, so I was at this conference for evangelical pastors in DC, and I said, you know, we went to a retreat for 3 days, imams and pastors in Texas, near Waco, and so while we were there, they said, okay, part of the retreat is we're gonna go all, you know, gun shooting. Like, why? If we are all men of God, why do we need to go gun shooting? Say, oh, this is part of what we do. And and I said, you know, I cannot square this, that your love for guns and you are against abortion. Okay? If you feel that life is sacred at that young age, and you don't want to abort the fetus, why do you think it's okay to kill an adult man or woman? Okay? You should be for life on both sides. That's how I see it. I see it, a good gun in the hand of an officer who is there to curb violence, to curb the small segment of society who are violent, who are criminals. Yes, but me, I don't need to carry it. I don't need to have it. Okay? I don't believe I need to. Because my job is to love my neighbor, not to be afraid of my neighbor. I don't need to kill my neighbor to feel safe. I feel that I look out for my neighbor look out for me. And that is my perspective. You know, I know in this nation we disagree, but we look at some other nations where they don't need all of this. You know, we can be good in faith and be good neighbors. We have to choose between Second Amendment or Second Commandment.
All right, any questions? Yes, sir.
So it's for the imam that just spoke, and so I was a cop for 30 years. And 2 questions actually. Do you think that guns are the cause of violence or a moral decay of society? And the second question would be, if you don't believe that you should own a gun, and I can appreciate that, but what would you do if someone forced their way into your house and was gonna kill your family? You know, hold them and talk to them, or how you gonna handle it?
For the first question, like I said, if you are a trained officer, you have been in the military, you have been for 30 years in law enforcement, you have gone through some prerequisites before you can handle this very important and deadly. Okay? You're not the same as you know, the Joe on the street who never served, doesn't know the laws, doesn't care about this. Okay? We need people like you. I have no problem with you carrying a gun, but we have to somehow make sure that the other guys who don't care for life, who will come to my house and shoot my family, don't have it. So to answer that question that you have, it is a moral decay. It is not the gun that kills, okay? It is the tool, but as Jesus said, you know, if you're angry with your brother, okay, you have killed him in your heart. Leave your offering at the altar, go reconcile with your brother, then come and offer. So this is what we need to work on. It's not the solution to sell more guns, to give everybody a gun, and then what? Everybody should have everything. If there is 5% who are in law enforcement, military, and carrying guns, that's perfectly fine. But these are responsible gun owners, they are trained, they know what they're doing, okay? They're not going around shooting everybody or invading my house. But the other ones don't need to have it.
So you're not against guns, you're against the irresponsible ownership.
Right, we need background checks, we need, the right steps to prevent all the wrong people from having guns. But we depend on you. We depend on you. You put your life on the line for us. But I'm not a good handler of a gun. So I don't want to carry one and shoot my own family with it. Okay?
That's good.
Any last minute questions? Yes, ma'am.
So back on the topic of violence, I loved that you mentioned getting rid of the job opportunities that drug dealers and whatnot have. So back to the fact that I teach, I have several students who have witnessed domestic violence, one of which has had their father arrested 3 different times. And they find it absolutely hilarious to see their mother or their cousin or their uncle getting hit. I'll never forget. They were talking about how the father slapped mom so hard across the face, her glasses went flying. They were dying laughing about it. So how, with the idea of getting rid of the job opportunity, how can you get rid of the outlook of violence for a child being fun?
Yeah, well, again, in my case, I happen to grow up with this. I watched my dad beat my mom on a regular basis and had to stand between him and the knife and truck with the motorcycle and all of this stuff. So I have a firsthand disdain for men that will hit women. But I will tell you that seeing this cycle, unfortunately, our kids, our boys grow up thinking it's okay. And our girls grow up thinking it's okay, because that's the way life's supposed to be.
Well,
And
and
it's
to
not
piggyback
okay,
off
and
of
it's
it,
not okay.
Yeah.
So we
because
have
I've
to,
been hit by them before because of it.
because they think, again, that physical responses are the way to deal with problems. And so in fact, in 14 years, I've never had a kid take a swing at me until this year.
Oh, no kidding.
And it was the 12-year-old of the dad who shot and killed his sister's fiance on the day of their, she was 19, 3 kids on the day of their 2-year-old's birthday. That's when this all happened. And he had a big meltdown in the street, and he said, what will you do if I take a swing at you? And I said, I'll take the punch and love you anyway. Not really thinking he was gonna take the swing.
Right. No, 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 I-
Fortunately, this gel is also fist-proof, so I was able to take a dodge and get a hair out of place. But again, for him, even seeing the consequences of violence, dad's at 33rd Street right now, about to plead to 20 years. And he still thought it was okay to punch the guy that's the final authority on everything that's happening around there. And his uncle just beat the crap out of his baby mama. And she was never going to go back, and that lasted 3 months, and she just moved back in and put the daughter back in the school. After seeing her own face bludgeoned. So again, it's this sick, twisted cycle that happens. And so I think the way that, it's not gonna make your shins feel any better, and you're getting kicked and whatever, but if you can persevere and you can love that kid anyway, in spite of the way that he's treating you, the Bible does tell us the most powerful thing in the world is love. Love can make enemies friends, as Dr. King said. And then probably it's the only thing that can change some of the stuff that we're talking about here.
So just be that supportive figure that they don't have.
And unkept, because their destinies depending on you.
Go ahead, one last question.
All right, real quick, brief, and either of the panelists can answer. They can decide. I really appreciate all of your content and especially the work that's going on in Bithlo. Tell me, from studies, it seems that for a person to be whole, there has to be the same thing being said happening in the home, as education, as in the church. And it seems like you're addressing things that help for the home and for the education. In your framework, in your philosophy of helping Bithlo, anything that directs people to the gospel or to local churches and strengthening churches and such like that, or is like, if it's the Baptist Church of Bithlo, is that church still decaying and dying, or is it growing alongside of the processes that you're doing?
Yeah, so Bithlo is very unique in the sense that in the African American community, there's that strong church fabric that even if it's a tough neighborhood, you grew up with that thing. Most drug dealers in Paramore have the Bible on the dash, you know, because in a twisted way, they feel like some verse in Psalm or something's going to protect them. In Bithlo, there really wasn't that church structure. There was this little church of a handful of elderly folks that have all passed away. But the great thing about our organization, I'm a believer, but our organization is humanitarian aid intentionally, and Transformation Village, the downtown for the community that we're building out, is kind of like Switzerland. So I come from an independent Baptist church movement where we don't do anything efficiently, and we don't want to help your church do something. We just want to worry about our church. And so it's been so exciting to see over 15 years that multiple denominations have been able to come together and succeed at doing things because no one owns it. And so they don't have some of those things that automatically divide us, denomination or individual church. But we firmly believe that to have ultimate transformation, you have to have a spiritual transformation. And so, yes, that's part of our mission statement, that, you know, we try to help with all of those things. And then again, not to be the expert on any one thing, but to bring in partners that can be that agent to help with the spiritual part of things as well. So it's a very important part of what we're doing.
Can I make a statement? I don't have a question. Hey, to the two gentlemen, the imam and the gentleman on the end, some of the questions, I listened to what you said, and some of the questions I asked tonight, I didn't do it to him on the end, because he's a cop and I'm not gonna do that. But to the imam and the gentleman on the end, some of the questions I asked tonight, I listened to what you said, and I asked questions that I thought would push and get you maybe to switch from what you originally said. And I appreciate the honesty of what you answered the questions to begin with, and then the consistency to follow up with the same type answer. You didn't switch positions, and I respect that.
I'm not breaking under your interrogation.
All right, thank you very much. So let's give a round of applause to all of our. We're gonna take a few more minutes before dinner, before we end up. But we want to emphasize, you'll see the squares all around the room. If you're not aware, this is part of the United Nations, what's known as the 17 Sustainability Development Goals that the United Nations with the world, hopefully, they're planning to really impact in a positive way by the year 2030. So this program, and I'm going to introduce Patrick in a few minutes, is really part of that campaign as well. We want to be, as they say, all politics is local. We want to really be the force field based on this impact that's happening globally. What we can do in Bithlo, Orange County, Central Florida, the world, all starts with us, each individual. And I think that's the main summary of the message today. So I want to really invite Brother Patrick to come up and talk about the organization that we're partnering with the Peace Institute as well, called Young Pioneers.
First, I want to thank everyone for coming in today, to the students that have been working so hard to get us to this point, and our guests. This was very exciting. I've learned a lot from the three of you on some concepts that I've been working on myself as well. So I've known Professor since 2018. When I was at Rollins as the Director for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. So I ran a center where the expectation of the university was if you show up with an idea, in 4 years, it should be a full-fledged organization, a business, whatever it was. My office, my department was supposed to give you all the support internally, externally, to be able to execute and go out there with whatever you wanted. So that's what I've been doing for the last 8 years in my career. I did it at Rollins, and then I was in India as well. We've implemented a lot of those opportunities across the US and other parts of the country. And that's how Tim and I are working on some of those concepts, both in Bidlaw and also my country, Kenya. We do a lot of mentorship in, I sit on a board of an organization, Ideas for Us, which is focused on environmental activism. And we are currently working in 22 countries. So with that expertise, when the professor was talking about this, I was like, I think it's an opportunity for us to collaborate and do this. So Young Entrepreneurs is just to help the youth and the young adults to be change makers. So whatever you believe in, we know that we call it midlife crisis. Well, I wanted to be a nurse, but I didn't have an opportunity because I went to be a lawyer or whatever career you took. What we are trying to do is to help nurture that interest at a younger age and give you a pathway to experience life through school and be able to continue in that pathway if you're able to do it. So our mission is just everyone has something, and that one thing can be able to be multiplied for the good of our society. So just to keep it short, our partnership with Professor and your class is to provide all the support to all our students that will sign up for the competition that is coming. I think Professor will talk about it. Through mentorship, connect them with the right resources in the community, and also work them resources in the community, but also connect them with experts on whatever topic areas that they will be working on. But all the 3 topics that were discussed today are the 3 areas we're going to stick with for this first launch. But look at this, we have 17 areas for us to make a change globally. But whatever you pick, we'll be able to connect you with all the right resources and the right community for you to succeed in achieving that. So I thank you all for that.
Let's give Patrick a So if you came late, this is part of the general competition that today is its launch. And it goes all the way to November in the fall of this year. And this is targeting high school students, college students from pretty much all of Central Florida, and hopefully in the future beyond. We started with the first challenge in Rollins when Patrick was there, and then COVID shut down everything. So now we're starting everything again. And the goal is, as you heard from the speakers, we focus on the spirit of the person, and then this is the action. And then hopefully we start building real solutions in the community. So if you have not signed up to get this information, please do. We want you to support us in getting the word out. If you work at a school, if you work with the county, this is for Seminole, Volusia, Osceola, as well as Orange, of course. So this is a competition for all of the high school as well as college. Then maybe in the future we'll do middle school. But the key is to find all of these 17 issues are categorized under those 3 issues that we talked about today, which is poverty, violence, and the environment. Obviously, there's a lot of problems in the world, and we start with ourselves. So we look forward to having you join us. There's going to be deadlines all through the year, but November, just before Thanksgiving, will be the actual competition. We'll probably be back here, and we're gonna look at all of the projects that the students came up with. And then there will be, grant money, about $500 grant money for the project that they can actually implement in real life, as well as they'll have a scholarship, a partial scholarship to go on an interfaith trip to Spain and Turkey. So all of these are great opportunities for our young people to not only dream to actually be a change maker, but to actually support them in being a change maker. All right? So thank you for your attention. We have sandwiches in the back, and again, help me thank the speakers for their time and their wisdom. Person, and then please make sure you register before you leave so they can let you know about the future activities. Thank you very much. Yeah.